The government will give details in the Commons this afternoon of its plan to spare more flat owners in England from the ruinous costs of removing unsafe cladding more than 4 years after the Grenfell Tower fire. Ministers want developers to pick up a £4 billion bill for residents in low-rise blocks who'd previously been offered loans to pay for the work themselves. Well, the Housing Secretary, Michael Gove, said this morning that the government would be prepared to take legal action to make builders pay.
The leaseholders didn't create this problem, and in many cases the sums concerned are sums that these poor individuals simply can't pay. But it is the case that companies which do have significant turnover, significant profits, significant dividends going out, they can pay, and we will make sure that they will. We hope that there will be a recognition of shared responsibility. I think that most people in the sector recognise that more needs to be done. But if necessary, then we can always use legal means and the ultimate backstop of tax in order to ensure that they pay. But what I want to do is to work with developers because, as I say, the overwhelming majority of people in the sector just want to work with us to resolve this problem.
Gove. Well, Charlotte Meehan lives with her husband in a development with fire safety issues in East London and joins me now. Charlotte, thank you so much for your time this morning. Tell us more about your situation.
Yeah, so I live in a mixed height development in East London. We have a variety of fire safety issues. So we've got flammable cladding, HBL cladding, but that's not the extent of the issues. We actually have combustible insulation, and we also have missing cavity barriers as well.
Now, you and your husband had hoped by this point to have sold this flat and moved to a house, because I understand you want to start a family, but you haven't been able to do that yet, have you? What are the costs involved here? Obviously, you can't sell the flat. I'm assuming that is the fundamental issue.
Yeah, exactly. So we are completely trapped. We can't sell our flat. It's worthless. At the moment, we don't actually have any remediation costs that have been passed on to us yet. The crippling costs that we're facing are all interim. So we've had a waiting watch for patrol for close to 2 years now. So that bill is approaching 500,000 for the development. So residents here and leaseholders have seen their service charge last year double, and we're facing a really huge deficit as well. Our reserve fund of 11 years has been depleted. So we're at the point now where not only can people not afford to pay their service charges, but the building is in a dire state of disrepair because there isn't any money to pay for contractors like cleaners.
It's a really dire situation to be in. And I understand there's a further complication in that I believe the freehold was sold by the developer to another company. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah, that's not unusual. So the developer, once it had finished, it handed over the freehold in 2013. So at the moment, we're in a situation where the developer doesn't want to pay for the remediation of the building, and neither does the freeholder. So the intention is to pass those costs on to the leaseholders here.
So you are absolutely stuck in the middle of all of this. What do you want to hear from the government today, Charlotte?
Whilst it is a welcome step in the right direction, there has been a shift in thinking, especially when it comes to lower rise buildings. My part of the development is under 18 metres, so it's very much welcomed. But there are, I think, 3 key things that are really missing. That is that it doesn't even look at buildings under 11 metres, and we know that there are tons of those in the UK. It doesn't look at all of the issues with fire safety. So it's going to approach cladding, but that is a very, like, the tip of the iceberg. I mean, that 2/3 of our bill will come from fire safety issues outside of cladding. And also it doesn't approach interim costs as well. As I mentioned, my development is approaching a bill of 500,000, and we simply can't afford to pay it. People are going bankrupt and losing their homes based on interim costs. So I want to see a much more focus on those 3 areas when the government announced this today. Unfortunately, it does feel like another announcement that is half-baked and doesn't go far enough to solve this crisis.
Charlotte, thank you so much for talking to us today. Charlotte Meehan there, who lives with her husband in a development, as Charlotte was explaining, with a number of fire safety issues in East London.